Ingram. I'm 17 years old. 3 months ago, my stepmother sat me down at the kitchen table and told me to sign over the $400,000 my dead mother left me. My dad stood behind her, arms crossed, and said, "She's your family now. Your mother would have wanted this." I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice. I said nothing. The next morning, I handed them a sealed envelope from my mom's lawyer. What was inside that envelope made my father cry for the first time in his life. Not because of the money, because of what my mother wrote about him. Words she'd kept sealed for years, waiting for the exact moment he'd need to hear them. Before we get into what happened, if this story speaks to you, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely connect with it. And I'd love to know, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. Now, let me take you back 6 months, to the day my mother closed her eyes for the last time. My mother died on a Tuesday. The sun was out. I remember hating it for that. Her name was Claire Ingram. She was 43, a 4th-grade teacher at Millbrook Elementary for 16 years. The kind of teacher who stayed late cutting construction paper, who bought winter coats for kids whose parents couldn't. She taught me to read before kindergarten. She taught me to write thank you cards by hand. She taught me that silence, sometimes, is the loudest thing you can say. The cancer came 2 years before She never smoked a day in her life. The doctor said it happens. She said, and she did. For 23 months she dealt with it. Chemo on Thursdays, teaching on Mondays through Wednesdays, grading papers on her hospital bed with an IV drip in her left arm and a red pen in her right. I'd sit beside her, doing homework, pretending I couldn't hear the machines beeping. The last week she could barely talk, but she pulled me close, her hand so thin I could feel every bone, and whispered something I didn't fully understand. "Everything you need is with Drayton. Promise me you'll call her." I didn't know who Drayton was. I didn't know what everything meant. I just held her hand and said, "I promise, Mom." She smiled. It was small and tired and perfect. And then, on a Tuesday afternoon in October, with the sun pouring through the window like it had no respect for what was happening in that room, she let go. I was the only one there. My father hadn't visited once in 2 years. Not when she was diagnosed. Not when she lost her hair. Not when she sold our house to pay the deductibles. Not once. The nurses cried more than I did. Mrs. Patterson from across the street brought flowers to a room that no longer needed them. My Aunt June drove 3 hours from Culpeper and held me in the hospital hallway while I shook. My father sent a text the next day. "Sorry for your loss," like I was a coworker, like she was someone he'd met at a party once. That part matters. You'll see why. The funeral was small. Mom's friends from school, a few neighbors, my Aunt June, Mom's younger sister, and me. My father showed up 20 minutes late, wearing a tie I'd never seen. He brought Valerie Hartwell, his wife of 6 years, the woman he married 14 months after walking out on my mother and me. She wore a black dress and an expression that said she'd rather be anywhere else. She didn't sign the guest book. Here's what you need to know about me at 17. I had nowhere to go. In the state of Virginia, a minor needs a legal guardian. My Aunt June applied. The court said no. My biological father had priority. Richard Ingram, 45, employed, married, with a 3-bedroom house in Grover, Virginia. So I packed 2 suitcases and moved in with a man I'd barely spoken to in 8 years. The house was already full. Richard and Valerie had the master. Brianna, Valerie's daughter, 16, had the 2nd bedroom. Kyle, Valerie's son, 14, had the 3rd. My room was the converted storage space at the end of the hall, a camp cot, a folding table, and a bare bulb overhead. My suitcases didn't fit. I stacked them in the corner and sat on the cot, listening to Kyle's video game bleeding through the wall. That first night, I heard Valerie in the kitchen. She wasn't talking to my father. She was talking about me. How long until the trust thing gets sorted? My father said something I couldn't hear. Then Valerie. She's been here 2 days and she already acts like she owns the place. I pulled my mother's blanket around my shoulders. I didn't cry. I just memorized the sentence. People tell you who they are early. You should believe them. 1 week in, dinner. Valerie made chicken casserole and served everyone before me. I didn't mention it. I ate what was left in the dish and washed my own plate. Halfway through the meal, Valerie started talking about money. She didn't look at me. She looked at Richard. Brianna's first choice school costs $55,000 a year. The roof's leaking again. The Honda needs a transmission, and my visa bill, don't even get me started. Richard chewed slowly. Then he turned to me. His voice was careful, rehearsed. Your mom, she left you some money, right? We should probably talk about that, as a family. I set my fork down. It's in a trust. I don't have access yet. Valerie leaned forward. Trusts can be changed. We looked it up. We. She said we. That meant this wasn't a dinner conversation. It was a coordinated ask. They'd been discussing it, maybe for days, maybe since before I moved in, maybe since the funeral. I picked up my plate, walked to the sink, rinsed it, dried it, put it away. Morgan, Richard said, we're talking to you. I heard you, I said. I just don't have anything else to say. I went to my room, sat on the cot, opened the small wooden box I'd brought from Mom's house. Inside, her reading glasses, a birthday card she'd written me when I turned 15, and a folded piece of paper with a phone number. The name next to it, in my mother's handwriting. Patricia Drayton, Esquire. I didn't call that night. I didn't know yet how bad things would get. But I ran my thumb over the ink and thought, Mom, what did you know that I don't? Turns out, everything. 2 weeks later, I came downstairs for breakfast and found a stack of papers on the kitchen table. The top page was highlighted in yellow. The header read, Petition for Guardianship of a Minor's Estate, Commonwealth of Virginia. Valerie was pouring coffee. She didn't look up. I picked up the papers. Read the first paragraph. Read it again. Richard walked in, dressed for work. He saw me holding the petition and cleared his throat. It's just paperwork, he said. Standard stuff. If I'm your legal guardian, I should have a say in your finances. It's for your own good, Morgan. I stared at him. You want to control Mom's trust? I want to protect you. He grabbed his keys. You're 17. You don't understand how money works. Mom understood, I said. That's why she set it up. He left for work. Valerie sipped her coffee and smiled at me over the rim. It was the kind of smile that said, this is already decided. I went to the library after school. Not for my shift, for the back room, where it's quiet and the Wi-Fi works. I sat in the corner and called the one person I hadn't been able to face since the funeral. Aunt June picked up on the first ring. Honey, I've been waiting for this call. They're filing for guardianship of Mom's estate, I said. My voice cracked, first time since the funeral. June was quiet for 3 seconds. Then, can you get to my place Saturday? Yes. Good. There's someone you need to meet. Her name is Patricia Drayton, your mother's attorney. My chest loosened for the first time in weeks. My mother had whispered a name on her deathbed, and now that name was becoming real. Ms. Patricia Drayton's office sat above a hardware store on Main Street in Culpeper. Small town, small building, small sign. But the woman behind the desk was anything but small. She was 58, silver-haired, reading glasses on a chain, and she looked at me the way a person looks at someone they've been expecting for a long time. Sit down, Morgan. Your mother told me a great deal about you. Aunt June sat beside me. Drayton opened a folder, thick, tabbed, organized. Your mother established an irrevocable trust 18 months before she passed. She named me as trustee. You are the sole beneficiary. She paused. Do you understand what irrevocable means? It can't be changed. Correct. Not by your father, not by his wife, not by any court petition for guardianship, because the trust already has a designated trustee, me. I exhaled. I hadn't realized I'd been holding my breath. The trust held $400,000, $250,000 from Mom's life insurance, $95,000 from her savings, and $55,000 from the sale of our house. She'd sold the house 6 months before she died and moved us into a rental. At the time, I thought she was downsizing because of medical bills. Now I understood. She was building a wall. Drayton reached into her desk drawer and pulled out a sealed envelope. Cream-colored, heavy paper. My mother's handwriting on the front. For Richard. When the time comes. Your mother gave me this with specific instructions, Drayton said. She asked that you deliver it to your father, but only when the moment is right. You'll know when. I held the envelope. It was warm, like it had been waiting. Your mother didn't hope for the best, Morgan. She planned for the worst, and she was right. I came home that evening and found my things in the garage. Not all of them, just the personal ones. The box of Mom's photographs. Her favorite coffee mug, the one with the chipped handle that she refused to throw out. My journal. The bracelet she wore every day for 20 years, a thin silver chain with a tiny locket, all of it stuffed into a black trash bag, sitting on the concrete floor next to a bag of lawn clippings. Kyle was in the living room playing his game. Valerie was folding laundry on the couch. I stood in the doorway holding the trash bag. Where's my stuff? Valerie didn't look up. We needed the space. Kyle needs a gaming room. This is my mother's jewelry, her photos. And this is my house. You're living here rent-free. The least you can do is not take up space. I opened the bag, found the bracelet tangled in a scarf. The locket was open. Inside, a picture of me at age 4 sitting on Mom's lap. The photo was damp. Something had leaked on it. I closed the locket, put the bracelet on my wrist, felt the clasp click into place. You can take my room, I said, and my voice was very steady. You can take my chair at the table, but you don't get to throw my mother in the trash. Valerie looked at me for the first time. Something flickered in her face. Surprise, maybe, or recognition that she'd finally found the line she shouldn't have crossed. She went back to folding. Kyle walked past the garage on his way to the kitchen and saw me kneeling on the concrete, sorting through the bag. He slowed down but didn't say anything. Even he knew, I think, that this particular moment wasn't funny. That night, I spread the photos on my camp cot and separated the water-damaged ones from the ones that survived. 11 photos were ruined, edges curled, colors bleeding. The rest I sealed in a gallon Ziploc bag and hid inside my suitcase. I wore the bracelet from that night forward, slept in it, showered in it. I wasn't taking it off until I was somewhere safe. I texted Aunt June. They threw out Mom's things. I need to get out of here. June replied in 30 seconds. 7 months, honey. You turn 18 in 7 months. We'll get you through this. 7 months. I started counting. The confrontation came on a Thursday. Richard called me into the living room after dinner. Valerie was on the couch, arms crossed, legs crossed, jaw set. She'd been building to this. I could tell by the way she'd barely spoken at dinner, storing her energy for the main event. Sit down, Morgan. I sat. We need that money, Richard said. Brianna's college, the roof. Your stepmother's been carrying this family on her back, and we're drowning. That money isn't mine to give, I said. It's in a trust. It's your trust. You can talk to the lawyer. Tell her to release it. No. Valerie uncrossed her arms. Your mother wouldn't want you to be this selfish. I looked at her, then at my father. You don't get to tell me what Mom wanted. You left her. The room went very still. Richard's face changed. Not anger exactly, but something older. Shame dressed up as authority. I'm still your father. Then act like one. Silence. 10 seconds. 15. Valerie broke it. See? This is exactly what I'm talking about. No respect, no gratitude. We feed her, house her, and she sits there like a little queen on a pile of money. Richard rubbed his face with both hands. When he looked up, his eyes were hard. "If you can't be part of this family, Morgan, maybe this isn't the right home for you." There it was, the threat. Cooperate or we throw you out. A 17-year-old girl with nowhere to go. I stood up. My hands were trembling, but I kept them at my sides. "You left Mom when she was healthy. You didn't come back when she was dying. And now you want her money." I walked to my room and closed the door. Quietly, the way my mother would have. The phone campaign started the next day. Valerie called Richard's mother, Grandma Shirley, then Aunt Linda, Richard's older sister, then Uncle Dean, his younger brother. She told each of them a version of the same story. "Morgan is sitting on a fortune while the family struggles. She refuses to help. She's ungrateful. She's turning into her mother." That last part was supposed to be an insult. It was the highest compliment anyone could give me. Grandma Shirley called first. "Morgan, your father is feeding you and putting a roof over your head. The least you can do is help out." "Hi, Grandma. The money is in a trust. I legally can't access it." "Then untrust it. Talk to the lawyer." "That's not how it works. Your mother raised you better than this. She'd be ashamed." I held the phone away from my ear, let the words float past me. Then I said, "I love you, Grandma. I have to go." Aunt Linda texted, "Don't be that kid, Morgan. Family helps family." I didn't respond. Uncle Dean didn't call. He didn't text. I thought that was strange at the time. Everyone else in the family had weighed in, pressured, advised, judged. Dean stayed quiet. I didn't know yet that silence was its own kind of message. I started spending my afternoons at the library, not just for my shift shelving books 3 days a week, but for the quiet. The back room had a table by the window where nobody bothered me. Mrs. Cooper, the head librarian, had known my mother. They'd worked together on the elementary school reading program. She never asked questions. She just left the back room unlocked after hours and pretended she didn't notice me still there. I'd sit at that table doing homework, watching the parking lot empty out, listening to the building settle. Sometimes I'd write in my journal, new entries, since the old ones were water damaged. I wrote letters to Mom that I'd never send, telling her about Valerie and the kitchen table and the phone calls from Grandma. I wrote them like she could read them. Maybe she could. That library became the only place where no one asked me for anything. No one told me I owed them. No one invoked my dead mother's name to justify taking what she left me. I was 17, alone, and surrounded, and I was running out of room to breathe. Kyle made it personal. He was 14, built like his mother's temper, short fuse, big noise. He'd already taken my charger, borrowed my headphones without asking, and changed the Wi-Fi password twice. I bought a new charger. I let the headphones go. I asked Brianna